I'm so excited to talk with you, Kylie. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Happy to
Oh
be
my
here.
gosh. Yay. You and I have worked together a little bit. We got connected when you first came to one of my sisterhood gatherings. And I feel so fortunate to know you. And I just have a special place in my heart for you because I feel, what's special about this conversation is that you're navigating through treatments in real time. And I'll have you share kind of what you've been experiencing, where you're heading. And I just want to honor you and thank you for being here.
Thank you for this space to share my story, and hopefully it helps someone. I know that it's kind of sometimes healing for me to talk through things. So thank you for having this platform and this space, because it's definitely needed. So appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. I know you're questioning, do I have what I have to share? Is it of value? And I said, yes. Yeah. Because what you've been experiencing, and we'll get into different situations and things you've encountered with your doctor, clinic, how things have been handled, and just your overall experience, what you've gone through so far. I think it's something that just isn't talked about a lot. And I want to open that conversation. So, thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, I mean, I know you started looking into treatments about a year ago, January, February of 2022. And would you like to share kind of what led you down the path? Did they identify some things that you needed to go down the path of IVF pretty soon, or were you struggling to conceive for a while?
Yeah, my journey to IVF was definitely an interesting one, because I had a lot of health issues before a year ago. So I kind of have always seen primary care physicians or my OB, and I was like, can you test my fertility? I mean, this conversation, me asking for fertility testing, I'm not joking, probably started when I was 20.
Wow.
I'm now 34. So almost like 10 plus years ago, I started having this like feeling of, hey, what tests are available? Like, I just want to know, like, I'm in a generation that, like, I think you kind of prioritize your career a little bit more, you wait longer. I didn't get married until a little bit later. So in the back of my mind, it was always there of like the fertility time clock ticking.
Mm-hmm.
But I just had odd symptoms, like some premenopausal symptoms. I've been diagnosed IBS. I always questioned an autoimmune diagnosis. So there were a lot that led me kind of in my own personal health journey to kind of question how fertility is impacted. And I was told so many times and dismissed by providers that you're young, you're healthy, there's nothing we can test. The only thing my OB, after I seriously asked, like, what can we start doing? She said we can do chromosomal testing, and if anything comes up, you might need to bring your husband in, but that's it. So chromosomal testing was it. I went to Thanksgiving with some friends a couple years ago, and one of the friends we kind of knew might be going through fertility issues, and she recommended the modern fertility test.
Mm.
And so like 3 years ago, maybe even more, probably three realistically, I bought modern fertility test,
Mm-hmm.
and I put it away in my bathroom, and I never thought about it again. So then fast forward to a year ago, my husband and I had a trip to Japan. And just before the trip, I was like, okay, we're getting off birth control, getting the IUD out, like pulling the goalie. It's
Yeah.
time. We're
Mm-hmm.
ready.
Mm-hmm.
Took a modern infertility test, sent it off, got back from Japan, and opened up the results. And it was terrifying. Like, my TSH was really high. My AMH was extremely low. So my modern fertility test was like, your AMH is like, you need to go see a doctor. But the TSH, like the thyroid, my FSH was off. Like, it just seemed like there was definitely something going on.
Mm.
And in the app, it like kind of tells you what it means. Like, oh, this low AMH, which is really helpful, but also dangerous, because you kind of start going
Mm.
down a rabbit hole of like, okay, I have an AMH of 0.34, which then later it was 0.28. So it was really, low. I say significantly low, and my husband always corrects me that it's low. And I walked into my OB with that test and said, hey, I need you to check my thyroid. I need you to tell me what to do, what my plan is. The look on her face was terrifying. She was like, I'm not a fertility specialist. I can't help you. You need to go see a specialist, for fertility endocrinologist, sooner than later. So I left that appointment just like bawling my eyes out, because I felt so one, mad that I had asked for a test. Two, I finally did my own test. I paid $200 or, however much the test is out of pocket. And three, now what I had feared was my reality. It was just a really
and this was a year ago when you presented that test to her?
year ago.
And when you said you were in your 20s, when you were questioning a lot of these things, you said IBS, right? Irritable bowel and
and
always
autoimmune stuff, autoimmune. Just hot flashes at night.
In your 20s,
kind of
experiencing that.
Correct. 20s.
And no one really tested for years. No one did anything.
When I walked into one OB, I was living in Arizona at the time. She took a more natural approach, and she's like, it's your birth control. You need to get off birth control. Your body is been on it. And I think we're now, as women, women at my age, we're kind of chatting about this, birth control is can be a challenge, and it was suppressing it. So when I went in, I was like, I'm having hot flashes. I'm, just night sweats. Something's not right. She did run hormone test. And that was, I think, my first time in my life I had ever been tested for hormones. I think I was 25 at the time. And I had 0 estrogen in my body.
Oh, wow.
So as we all know now, estrogen is extremely important in women's bodies. And I don't know for how long had I been kind of on that, going through those symptoms, and kind of now learning what symptoms of your PMS is normal, what's not normal. It's just been an interesting journey about exploring my body.
Well, I know you have, some background, you said, in public health, right? And your husband's a doctor, and you've been very driven in educating yourself in all different areas of health. And I mean, kind of, as you shared with me, textbook, you'll do what you're told, and you follow the guidelines of your doctors and everything. So from that point, when you were directed to a reproductive endocrinologist, right? Then what happened? Was IVF when you discovered that's okay, we need to look into this here?
Yeah. Modern fertility test was November a year ago. And then it takes a couple months to get in with an IVF doctor. So during that time, we were kind of still trying naturally, but also nervous about the future of what those tests meant until we could actually get answers. So when we met with the IVF doctor, it was scary then too. The response was we want to recheck, because they say every blood lab is different. So they really they're one of the top labs in the world for IVF. So I definitely was yes, let's see if this is really what's going on. Let's get a treatment plan. But we went through the options, and our doctor kind of said IVF was our best option. It was probably more aggressive, I think, just, we wanted, and we supported that. So in no means were we hesitating. We were numbers people. So we kind of were listening to what they were saying, okay, you could do IUI, which is low. You could keep trying naturally, surprisingly low. Who would have thought that getting pregnant on your own is such a blessing for those that it happens to. I think women that don't have fertility issues, really it's such a sacred, amazing thing. And it changes women who can't get pregnant in such a profound way. So our doctor was we don't know how my AMH came back lower than what modern fertility said, which is normal to vary slightly, wasn't significantly lower. And he just said, this is your best chance to get pregnant. You know, and my antral follicle count was low too. So it kind of was like all of these compounding things led us to make that decision to go ahead and start moving forward with IVF, because we didn't know. Our doctor did tell us, like, we don't know if your AMH is going to stay this level, or if in 6 months or a year it could be differing. And AMH is confusing because women typically aren't tested for it. And so it's like an odd thing to know, like, if women are out there. And that's where my husband's like doctorate brain and my healthcare brain, it's like, well, IVF and fertility data points are so low. Like, there's not a lot of women that are tested until it's pretty severe. And then you're in there getting tested, but you don't know, like, if women getting pregnant today have the same number that I have. So, but that was the choice. So we got scared. We were like, okay, let's just throw everything at it. And we were so extreme. And I think, like, looking back, at that appointment, he told us, you know, he diagnosed, and it had such like it defined who I was. And I think in one of our first sessions, this is what you and I talked about. And I was like, I kind of came to it and I was like, I have a low AMH and this is really bad, or, you know, whatever. And I lost my voice. Like, I've always trusted my body, and I knew physically things had been going on before this, and no one listened. And so the journey to healthcare for me had always been a dismissal of, like, you're healthy, you look healthy. And that's always been really hard and frustrating to me. But that started our IVF journey.
Yeah, I think so many can relate to what you're sharing, and how these diagnoses, what we're told, how if we hold on to these words, they can define us if we let them. I'm glad that kind of helped you, and kind of bringing awareness to you about that.
It helped, but I also was in such a space of, like, extreme rule following that I was listening to what people were saying, but I wasn't actually feeling what they were saying. It's almost like I was having, this sounds crazy, an outer body experience through IVF. I, you know, pushed so hard. You know, with my IBS, like, I already have strict eating things. I don't eat gluten. I then was told not, you know, go dairy free. You get with IVF, I think I shared it with you, like a list of like 50 things to do. And it's like, take all these supplements and do this and do that. And I almost, like I said, I made a checklist. Like, I went through every item to the extreme. I stopped wearing nail polish. I stopped going to get pedicures. I threw out all my products that like had fragrance in it. I stopped eating dairy. I went vegetarian because like Mediterranean plant-based was, you know, in some studies showed to help. I was so lost. I like thinking, and I know they say IVF changes women. Like I look, and it was not that long ago. It was like 2 months ago. I like think back of who I was in that time, and it's you like, I was sad for her because she was so like restricted, and I don't think people realize, like, you know, that control of trying to be perfect to get the thing you want the most. It wasn't serving my mental and emotional health and my physical health. I was sacrificing it all because I thought that was what was best. And because the doctor said, these are what could optimize your chances. And my husband and I fully were like, we're going to throw every single thing at this. And we did it so hard for so long. It was, you know, 4 cycles of egg retrievals. 3 that we actually moved to egg retrieval, and 1 transfer.
We've talked before this, recording, and you shared with me you went to the extreme. You said we did it all, like you really kind of stopped living, right? Saying no to opportunities. Maybe it was gatherings with friends, and so many listening.
Everything.
And
I didn't go home.
This, right? You stopped living. You put your life on hold. You were totally like excluding anything that could potentially, right, impact this working out.
Yeah, but I felt so strongly that what we were doing was right and best. And that's hard because in the end, I don't know if a trigger warning for those that are in a space that could listen to this. We did experience after transfer a loss. And so experiencing that after trying, to the extreme to make it successful, and in the end, you don't have control. And so the fact that I had went to such extremes to control every single element of what I put in my body, the thoughts, I mean, I was meditating every day, and it's so hard because I know mindset's so important. After the loss, I threw it all away. I was so mad at this should have worked because I did everything by the book, and I'm mad that it didn't work. And for me, it was hard because I felt like I had heard so many success stories, and for us, we had 1 embryo. So there was a lot of pressure to get this one right. We don't have, a banking of embryos, which, again, for those that have it, I'm so, so happy. And it's hard, for me to hear, sometimes like I've been having to really prioritize my mental health and, but at that time, it's just been confusing, and navigating loss and grief has been hard after it, because I saw so many people that had 1 embryo and it worked. And I'm like, this should have worked.
I know our story, and I'm grateful that we've had the chance to connect, and I did get to support you in preparation for that 1 transfer. And we don't know why sometimes it doesn't work. It's like we can't blame ourselves. We don't know why.
Right.
Sometimes it does work, sometimes it doesn't.
Right. Yeah. Everyone's journey. I think we all learn. And this experience is like the only one thing that's the common denominator in any of us is just infertility. Like that is the broad umbrella term that unites us. I mean, there's so many other things that unite us, our hearts and our minds, and supporting each other in ways that no one else understands. No one that doesn't walk the path of not having a simple pregnancy doesn't, they don't understand, I think, the struggles that people go through to get pregnant. But like our stories, even comparing, oh, you had 1 embryo, it should have worked. That's like such a hard thing because it's so easy to compare, and it's nothing alike. It's every single female body is just so intricate and complicated. And
one
so
thing you
tough.
shared with me in preparation for or it was reflecting back after the transfer hadn't worked. And I know, did you have a positive in the beginning? Do you have a positive?
Mm-hmm.
And then
we had so after the transfer, we had a positive pregnancy. And so it was a tough call. As I shared with you a little bit about it. It was a Friday, and our nurse called us for the result. It was a baseline, so it wasn't the confirmation pregnancy test. And it was a really tough call because she said, your HCG is really low, and the chances of it being a viable pregnancy is very low. And she kind of warned us to prepare for the worst, which at the time, hearing that was really, I had my first panic attack that I had ever had in my life. was really hard. I think I working up to this, like through IVF coaching and really working in therapy, I was like, what do I do if it doesn't work? What do I do? And you can't plan or prepare for that. And it's not healthy to until you're in it. And then once I was in it, I was so, angry at others that like my therapist, I was like, I asked you what to do if this didn't work. And you didn't tell me, because there was no right or wrong answer to how to have been able to navigate that news. I questioned like if the news could have been delivered differently. If, you question like, would have been like worth not telling me? You can't not share clinical data or like, the information that they have, but telling me to be ready for it to not work was just heartbreaking.
Yeah, she said, prepare for the worst is what you told me.
Yeah.
Prepare for the worst.
Prepare for the worst.
I mean, there are nurses, practitioners listening. I mean, those words, you don't forget those. And it's not helpful. It's so insensitive.
It was,
there can be so much more compassion and giving people some hope.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. How do you share news like that, but not like, oh, prepare for the worst?
Yeah. My question back, as I was kind of like mid panic attack, not being able to breathe, I had my first, like, I mean, I tell you, like, for those that suffer with panic attacks, like the ones that you like hear stories, like people have a panic attack and they have to pull off on the side of the road and can't feel their body. I felt that like to the extreme. I couldn't breathe. I was hyperventilating. I couldn't feel my legs. Like I couldn't stand. It was awful. And you're just kind of left with this news of like, I don't know. It just, going back to that moment is so painful. But what I did know is that I could get through it. I had the confidence and I had the power that I was like, I like that quote that's like, you've made it, 99%, you've made 100% of, you've gotten through anything that you thought you couldn't get through. Mm-hmm. And even in that moment, I still hoped for a miracle. Our question back to her was, have you seen someone with a lower HCG get pregnant? Like, what does the data say? Which now looking back, I'm like, that was not a good question. Like, don't ask that, but she did say, I think it was like a 6 or 13 or something. I can't remember the HCG number. And then it did work out for that patient in the end. So I was trying to get hope, and I kept the hope. And I think that's a hard part with this is and then you talk to people, I immediately called my sister and she's like, I had a friend. Everyone has a friend who had success. Everyone like in this infertility, and people share it, and they share it from such a place of like hope and love, trying to tell me to like,
intentions,
to
right?
make better intentions. Like, I think that's like, I had one embryo and it worked, and the intentions, hearing personal stories are different than like, I had a friend who did this and it worked. Or, so my sister was like, I had a friend who got told the whole pregnancy that like, they were just waiting for it to miscarry. And then she ended up, with a healthy baby. And so my sister was like, don't believe it. But I think that goes back to the point of once that infertility or like fertility diagnosis was given, it defined me so much. And then once I was told like my HCG was so low, like it was all, I just believed it. Like it became me. Like I was just like, yes, okay, at that point I was like, this is what's going to happen. And I don't have a choice about it. That next Monday we went in for my confirmation pregnancy test. So I was told Friday, it's positive. You are pregnant. Don't get excited. Like, don't hold, like, I basically at that point was told, like, hold your breath for what's to come, which Monday was our confirmation. And again, I think it was the most quiet car ride to the fertility clinic. I mean, my husband and I just were so like, it was like dreading this appointment. And I cried in the lot. I just begged my husband not to make me go in. I was like, don't make me go in. Because I didn't want to know what the outcome was, because I had already been told what it was, like, and that was the first time I like cried while giving blood at the clinic. I feel so bad. Like, those poor phlebotomists are like, gosh, they're with you every step of the way. Yeah. And there are like literal angels in the clinic that are, like through the hard times, like your ultrasound sonogrammers and your, like the ultrasound techs, you see them every day for months. Like, you become dependent on their care and their positivity and their hope. And so the phlebotomist, so sweet and so kind. So like, there are people out there are providers out there that
care.
It was just they care. It was so sweet. She, she hugged my little vial of blood and like gave it a big squeeze. And I know, it was so sweet. Yeah, it was sweet.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I know.
I'm like losing it with you. I just can
the reality. Yeah, you feel it with me, and this is a hard topic, and I'm just so proud and honored. It's not like an honor that I'm not proud that I have to go through this. I'm not honored that I have to, but I'm honored that I get to share that even in the darkest time, you are not alone. As alienated as I was, as, controlled as I forced on myself and hurt I kind of hurt some of my relationships, just being I had friends after say like, we felt like we couldn't even see you. Like, that hurts to hear that we alienated and controlled so much that people couldn't be there for us. And then after the loss, it was an interesting time, because it's like that heartbreak of every rigid structure that we had clung to was gone. Right. Like you have
How did you feel with that? Because I know you shared with me, you went to the extreme. And then did you feel like a sense of relief, or was it like when you didn't have that structure support, like I wouldn't even say it's support. It was like boundaries you were setting for yourself, right?
Correct. It was a rediscovery of who I needed to be, and a really hard look at, it was like a huge time of reflection while grieving. It was like I kind of took that day that we got the news, and it was on our second wedding anniversary party, so it was really a tough time. So like at the time of grieving, I was getting, hope you and your husband are having an amazing anniversary. Like, it was really hard to kind of at the same time go through that when we should have be celebrating two big milestones. We were kind of grieving that mostly. I was so lost. I didn't know who I was. I think the biggest thing is I encourage people to keep my health background through that IVF. Like, I didn't feel great. I started losing weight through that. And not once do they weigh you. I mean, you're on like injectables, you're on some heavy duty patches, estrogen patches, you're on progesterone oil, you're on all these supplements, and not once did, they're really only looking at one part of your journey or one part of your medical. And that is like to get you pregnant based on their protocol. But at the end of the day, I saw my neighbor and she's like, you look really sick. Are you okay? Like, I had lost so much weight. Like, And I think it was the food restrictions. I didn't even know what to eat. So I felt like, well, I don't know what to eat, so I'm just not going to. I didn't want to eat. I think it's like so stressful to go through IVF. And it was just interesting because I was like, I didn't think I had lost weight, but then you here's that from someone and you're like, oh no, do I look different? Like I felt like a shell of myself. Just going through the motions so hard to get to the end result, knowing in the back of my mind, maybe something wasn't quite right. And that's where I want to say, your doctors and your providers are the experts to a point, but they don't know you. They didn't know my body. And through this, my voice was so, I lost my voice. Like my, I guess, I don't know, not literally, I could still speak,
right.
but
You
what I
lost
was
your
speaking
ability
wasn't
to
my
advocate
truth.
maybe, or ask.
Yes. My ability
Advocating.
to advocate, my ability to feel the strength to question things, my ability to raise flags, my ability to say, this is enough. I don't feel right. Something might not be right. I just thought this is our best chance and we have to just keep going. And when it didn't work out the way, we had dreamed and hoped, it was really, like I said, a time of sitting back and saying, like you said, did it feel like relief? I don't think it was relief. There's so much like
almost like numbness. You're like, right?
Yeah. A lot of just rediscovery of myself, of my new self.
So glad you're talking about this. I mean, IVF changes you. This whole path is like a constant, like it's a rediscovery of yourself in so many ways. And I know you had shared with me, you were so depleted. You use that word depleted.
Oh yeah. Depleted. I think, I felt I had nothing. I was giving it so much. I honestly, like the way I could think about it is those marathon runners who are like crawling, like their bodies are trying so hard to support them and their minds are there like to finish the race, but their bodies are just breaking down. And that's how I felt inside. Like I was just crumbling to that finish line. And really, like I said, that outer body experience, like I was meeting with you and we were talking about it. And I was so hyper fixated at that time when we last chatted right before transfer. I was so paranoid about getting sick. I was like very hyper, like I'm not going out in public. So we self-quarantined just because we were like, we've waited so long for this transfer date. Anyone that's going through IVF knows it's not a fast process. Like you have retrievals and then you wait till your next cycle. If you do back-to-back retrievals, you then still have your mock transfers prep, and then you have another month or two before transfer. So, I mean, that's a long journey and process to get through. It's not fast. And so we were like, we're not going to see anyone for weeks leading up to, which is crazy to think about, like we couldn't control, but I also lost trust in my body. Like, you kind of go through that resentment of like my body. Why can't you do what you need to?
I want to talk a little bit about what you had shared with me after meeting with, you had a follow-up, and just a little bit about what you experienced. And I think this is so important to chat about because this path is so hard. It's so emotional. And then what you had to experience, and again, advocating for like asking for things and like a follow-up, right? We share a little bit about your experience with that.
Yeah. And I just want to be mindful that like my experience after the loss is a totally different experience. And there are women, no matter what path you're on, even when you get your let's say your positive pregnancy diagnosis, there's a whole nother layer of like mental and emotional support that needs to happen because you are terrified. I imagine, I can't speak to it, I have not felt it, but I imagine there's a level of like excitement and fear all at once. Like you kind of hold both.
I hear
Once
that from
you
a
are
lot of
pregnant of
people.
like, I feel like, so, you know, I'm like this, I get there's two pieces. I'm only can talk to what I experienced and what I felt and what I went through in our journey of the loss of one embryo that for whatever reason just couldn't be here with us today. And but I took it, that loss, as like, what was her purpose? Like it wasn't for any, it wasn't like lost for nothing. Like what was it to show me? And loss is really hard because even early loss, I met with I'm going to talk about what happened with our IVF doc after, but I met with an endocrinologist. So part of that, okay, let me train my, get my thoughts. I met with an endocrinologist because, you know, at the pregnancy loss, when they told us it didn't work, my first gut instinct was, what was my thyroid? And there was such a like huge light that went off that I was like, something's not right. And my husband was like, it's okay, we'll figure it out. Like, you know, don't panic, you know, we're going to figure it out. And I was like, something's not right. They released my thyroid in my portal, and my thyroid was really elevated. It was outside of like the normal thyroid protocol that IVF has, which is very like different than OBs. Like, you know, they kind of have ranges, but for IVF, I think the number that our clinic went with was that they shoot for it to be under 2.5 for your TSH, which is your thyroid hormone. Mine, after the pregnancy loss, was close to a 4. And I didn't have a thyroid test done before I went into transfer. And when I started kind of looking back, I was like, wait, the whole time you had told me you want it in this range, you told me we should have been checking my thyroid. Why didn't we check it? And I kind of started like, I reached out to our doctor via email. I reached out to our nurse and I was like, hey, is this normal? And we didn't hear back. No one was answering us. After we lost the pregnancy, I did get a call the same day from the like secretary saying, you know, we didn't mention like we're no empathy. It was just, hey, we hear you need a regroup with your doctor. You can do it this Thursday. This was a Monday. I was still in like processing the pregnancy loss. I was like, I'm not ready to talk. I like can't even breathe. I don't know how I'm supposed to talk to our doctor. So she's like, he has a cancellation Thursday. Do you want it? And I said, no. I was like, I can't think about it. So I think finally, in hindsight, I wish I took it and just seen what happened. And if I didn't need it, didn't show. But because the next appointment, we couldn't get it until almost 2 months. So his schedule was so full that we had to wait almost 2 months to talk to him.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know
which was, yeah, it was a really long time. So on top of not getting an email response, not our nurse completely like not talking, I was requesting labs. I was like, I want a thyroid lab done. I want, which the thyroid didn't matter, but I wanted an autoimmune test. I said, there's something that didn't go on. And so no one was answering us. I felt so like frustrated. I was like, why?
Yeah,
like,
you told me after they told you
confused.
it didn't work and they dropped you.
I felt like I had been like completely like blackballed, like no communication. It just, after that Monday call, after working with this clinic for a year so closely, like they were our lifeline, no one was responding. So on top of dealing with that, I turned angry. Like I was like, I need answers now. Like I am,
because your intuition had kicked in. Your intuition was speaking to you like thyroid.
Something is off.
Yeah.
So we finally, a couple of days later, I don't know who told us to like call the nurse, but someone told us, I don't remember who, But my husband and I were like, okay, no one's answering us. I went to my OB and I was like, I want labs done. And she said, well, we don't really know what we're looking for. I said, that's fine. And she at first was a little hesitant to do labs. I said, I just had a pregnancy loss. I said, I would just like to make sure to see what the heck happened in my body. And it might not show us anything, but I felt like I just wanted peace. And she was, like I said, nervous. And I said, okay, then can you put in your notes? I had heard to do this, but I had never done it. It says, okay, can you please note in your side that you are declining running these XYZ labs? And when I said that, something switched. And she was like, well, I'm not denying you them. If you want them, I can run them. They're just out of pocket. I'm like, our whole IVF journey was out of pocket. This is running a $200 lab. I don't care at this point. We want answers.
Yeah.
She was the one that told us to call to talk to that nurse. So this OB talked on the phone with us. I have a beautiful story about that too. So talking about angel providers, she was one of those eventually. Once, she did what we wanted, didn't really want to, but
Yeah.
but so I was asking for all these labs. So she was like, call your nurse, head nurse, speak with the head and see what to do. So we called, we were like, hey, my thyroid was out of whack. We thought, is this normal? Was it normal? Could it have led to the loss? And she's like, well, a thyroid antibody test should have been ran and it didn't. So something was missed. So she ran my thyroid antibodies and I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's. So years of pushing, years of me thinking, I have every symptom on this list. Like, what is going on? I was so mad that like, I knew. So I'm like, through this, I'm like gaining power, like my voice, like this was my story. This, I can't be mad that it wasn't checked before. I can't be mad. And maybe it did and it never showed. But in this moment, finally, like it was there, it was showing something that I always knew, which is crazy to think about. So trust yourself, trust your body, trust your heart, trust your mind, and keep pushing to find providers to do those tests. To even if it's like, I hear the other side of like testing AMH, they're like, well, you could panic about nothing because you could get pregnant naturally. I rather know. I'm with the health background, like I would just rather know what the results are and handle it. And if it's might not matter, then that's fine. But I'd rather had been taking supplements or things to have like worked on my egg quality for 10 years. I would have had years of trying to get my thyroid under control, two, like an autoimmune, support. And so we finally, met with our doctor. There was a cancellation, so we got moved up a little bit, thankfully. So we were like, yeah, let's take it.
And was it the OB that said they should have checked, or was it the nurse that said we should have checked?
It was the nurse. The nurse said, oh, we should have checked. The head nurse at the IVF clinic.
Head nurse said we should have checked your thyroid.
We should have. Correct. Yeah. She was like, oh, we should have checked your thyroid antibody after it was elevated. But then she also sent us an email saying, but I can confirm that this did not cause your loss. So,
and how
we just still were
how do they confirm that?
Yeah, we were confused too. Like, well, the numbers you've been saying is very different than what you're saying now. So of course we're confused. And we know what numbers you've been saying because we were the people that were like the perfectionists of the protocol. Like I'm telling you, like my husband was so extreme. And like, if he even one of the, I think our HCG, like comes pressurized. And like, when he would take the needle out, it would like lose a little bit. He was so like, so exact because he's an biomed engineer. So like to him, precision matters. And in hindsight, healthcare is all kind of like, it's not that precise sometimes. And IVF is kind of still like, it's precise to a point. But losing teeny bit of medicine isn't going to make or break they kind of, I think, have buffer for those that do actually like spill some on the floor, whatever. So no, that head nurse said that on the call. And then sent us an email and said, hey, it looks like you did both of your thyroid antibodies were spiked or elevated, which leads us to an autoimmune condition. I can confirm that this did not cause your pregnancy loss. That was like very in the email, which one I was like, of course they're going to put that in the email. But then she said, we think you should get your thyroid managed outside from a different endocrinologist. So like, you kind of like hear that it's not optimal, but it didn't cause your pregnancy loss. But then now they're like, go see someone else.
Oh.
We aren't going to manage your thyroid or your levels, which again, made me frustrated and question it. But with our doctor, it was such a disheartening regroup. It was, we had been navigating loss. I think every single person that goes through IVF should be offered counseling or emotional and physical support to kind of keep an eye on the person, because it is so incredibly hard. Our doctor's first thing, he didn't acknowledge the loss. He said, I did everything that I would have done. I wouldn't have done anything different. And I think hearing that was like the answers we needed to like move forward without that clinic and that provider. And I did give that feedback in that closure meeting. I was so nervous to go to that meeting with our doctor. I said, I don't know if I can do it. I can do anything I put my mind to. So I'm glad I went. At the same time, the provider was talking about a lot of operational changes, like recent promotion, which is amazing. Not the time and place when you are talking to two people who just lost their baby. And for fertility people, you watch those follicles. Those people, I know people that haven't gone through it are like, and I had been told that endocrinologist, when I finally met with an outside endocrinologist, she med-splained to me that it was a chemical pregnancy and tried to like dismiss the emotional, like me, that I was a mom, that I experienced the loss of a child. I carried a child. It wasn't for long, but I think providers need to recognize, and the infertility community, like I think recognizes that those eggs, like it becomes you love them.
Your potential. Yeah.
It's like all your hopes and dreams in one little sack of cells. And at that point, they're like 2 cells, and you just want them to fight and want them to be your baby. And you do see it, like you see your daughter, or, and you saw her so early. So kind of hearing to be corrected that, it wasn't a loss. I was just so done with the endocrinologist. I was like, I can't do this. And I think you need to go back to school to take a lesson on empathy and bedside manners. And it's hard because I kind of was facing it from every provider. I think the two people, you reached out to me after and said, what can I do? What resources? How can I help? My therapist did that. She gave me about 2 weeks, and I was mad at first because I was like, she knew what was going on and knew it didn't work. And I was mad. And then finally 2 weeks, she's like, are you ready? And I can't tell you how much that means from providers. I think providers need to be, I don't know, you hear the stories of the fertility providers that I watched it. It's on Instagram. I just recently saw it, and a provider was talking about how they feel it. And I didn't have that experience, and it makes me really sad.
Aww. Well, I care about you. I really care. And I'm grateful that you're open, to it's reconnecting. And I just really, any resources I can provide and share, that's what I'm here to do. IVF is not it doesn't work all the time. It's not the answer for everything. Like, I know we've talked and you said you're looking to take a break, probably maybe just shelf IVF and like looking at more
We have,
natural
we put a pin in it because natural ways. We kind of were
Yeah.
like IVF, you know, how our experience ended was hard for us to deal with on top of loss. You know, we did feel dropped by the clinic, and you kind of see them so much, and then at the end there was just nothing. Like, it was so odd and just feeling really alone. But I found solace and like healing in the providers that did step up, and I think that that's powerful, you know, to say like, okay, my IVF doctor couldn't be the one, my transfer nurse couldn't be the one, my endocrinologist wasn't the right fit. And now I kind of have that, like, before I work with someone, are you going to be there for me? Are you going to be an advocate? Are you going to listen and not make me feel crazy? Are you going to listen, like, have the emotional intelligence to listen to me and to where I'm heard? Like, if I'm telling you something, and it might not be nothing, like you could say, but for years I asked to be heard. And I still don't think I really have, and that's really hard to kind of like unpack and kind of like not have resentment. And but I am thankful for having the opportunity to go through this. And in hindsight, I wouldn't lose my voice. I wouldn't go so extreme. I wouldn't have it control my life to the extreme that it did, because at the end of the day, it hurt more than I knew. And I think that Friday, after the Monday was the loss, and Friday I told my husband, I said, let's go get Mexican. I ate a $15 queso cheese dip. I had a strawberry margarita. I ate a chicken. And I don't eat gluten. I don't eat dairy. I don't eat gluten. Like, I was just like, let's go.
Pizza, drinks, food, right? You told
honestly, we got like fried ice cream, and we were sitting there, like, as I'm crying into my fried ice cream with my husband, like both of us crying. And we thought, one day we're going to bring a baby here, and like, it will be celebrating their birthday, eating fried ice cream, like, kind of thinking like there's going to be, we know it might look very different, but like, how funny that fried ice cream for us was like a healing, you know. It was like, I was so mad and just so mad at my body. I was just like, okay, you want to fail? Let me show you who's in charge. And it just is like kind of comical to think that like fried ice cream is just like, it was a good ending to a chapter, but also hope for the future. So we're trying everything, like, Mayan massages, like, I bawled like a baby. I highly recommend it. Natalie Gentry in Denver was such
shout
a
out
sweet
to
soul
Natalie. Oh my gosh.
she was, I mean, that you hold so much, like, I know you work with energy, and like, I think we kind of were like, we did the science part like so much. Now I'm like I pendulum to the other side of like, where's my naturopath? Where's my Mayan massager? Like, where's acupuncture all the way? Mental therapy, IVF therapy. Like, I was like, completely just switched my brain into different things, and how like open and healing focused it is on more than just my estrogen number and my progesterone number. They're actually people that look at the person.
So I'm here to share all my resources with you, and I appreciate you being so open to that. And what you're really making me think about too is just how important it is to live your life through this.
Yes.
And going through IVF, we stop living. And I know you shared with me something that stuck with me. You said, I miss the person I was before infertility.
Yeah.
And it's like, what we used to do, and the joy, and it's like, we shelve all that. And oftentimes I did not choose to go the restriction route when I was going through IVF. I didn't have the special diet. And I did a few certain things, but there Like you did the extreme and you cut everything out, no manicures, maybe no hair things, no
No
social
hair.
gatherings where you, I don't
I
know,
didn't
all
go
the,
outside when there was bad air quality. I did not go outside. Like I am telling you that, like,
yeah, you went there.
extreme.
You did.
Yeah.
Can you tell me,
Don't go
like,
there.
I've done that path. We can say we've done it all. I've checked that off, and
Yeah.
I'm not doing that anymore.
It hurt my mental and emotional health. Like I think to that extremist, once it all ended, like I said, I felt so lost because I had cut so much that I was like, I didn't even, to walk outside and to like breathe in air and not worry about the air quality. Man, what a beautiful thing to walk out into the sunshine and not check the air quality and not care if the air quality is a little bad. Like, it's more important to get the sunshine on your face and to get the breeze in your face. Like, there's benefits, there's like pros and cons. And I think we did what we thought was right in that moment. And we have friends that are going through it now, and I see the same exact thing in them that I saw in me. They're clinging so hard to that diagnosis and what they're supposed to do and what's right. And it breaks my heart because I did it. And you never know if it's gonna play out the way you hoped.
Tell people, right? Like it's everyone's own path. You know, we can share our personal experiences of what we did. And I hope anyone listening really just hears, I mean, Kylie, you're just opening up your heart. I just thank you so much, like going there, because this is, many women are just,
this was really hard.
Type A, where it's like, you do want to control everything. And you shared with me, and this stuck with me. I need to live. I need to breathe and bask in the sunshine without IVF. And I appreciate you sharing that. Like, this is not always the path to motherhood. Like, there's multiple different paths, and this is one I know very well, having lived it personally. And this is what I've chosen to support women through. But you're still like, I'm there with you, you know, like you're maybe putting IVF to the side. I'm still going to be there for you, you know? So it's like having people by your side, walking through this with you. It's so emotional. And I love that you're exploring again in that discovery phase of like discovering who your providers are and what's going to be the next avenue to get you closer to your goal, right?
And honoring the voice inside my heart, and then the voice that I have. And this voice, you know, you obviously heard me cry, and I'm angry at some things, and I hold both of those spaces of like, I can be angry that I was let down by a provider, but I can also be like so blessed that I had the opportunity to go through it with that provider. Like I really like am practicing honoring both, which I think is important in this, and like but also like helping friends that are going through IVF. It's honoring their journey and what they're going through while also protecting my journey, because you want to help others. And that's why I'm sharing my story. I hope this helps one person that said, yeah, I am being so crazy. And do it, but do it to a point where you're still taking care of yourself and still living. You know, that is so important. And because when things might not go the way you hoped, when it ends, you won't be so alone, you know, in that space. You won't look back and think my life was just such a hard place for a year. And maybe it didn't need to be.
No. You've given so much wisdom here. I mean, I love that. You're honoring both. You're walking in kind of this duality. You're finding the gratitude through this, honoring your grief, not, you know, you're moving through it, and you're so strong. You're so courageous. I admire you so much. Thank you. I'm there with you. Thank you so much for this talk. I hope people. I love you.
Yeah, me too. I love you too. And
we'll talk soon, Kylie.
Sending love to those that are walking through this journey as well.
Amazing. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much. Have a good day.